And another one. Okay, this time I felt I felt like doing it this different thing. This is what I was called to do, and I don't know how this is gonna go. We will find out together. But I have this, and I can't turn the camera around on this phone. So let's see if we can. The way that I have this set up, maybe you can see it. I don't know. Yeah, you can see it a bit. I've drawn cards already on here. And the way I have it set up is that I'm going to go in a specific order. I already have this drawn out. So before even drawing cards, before even knowing what's going to fall out on the table, I have a preset designation as to where things are going to fall. And I guess actually, now that I think of it, I should put numbers. So this was the first card. This is the second, but it's underneath the first card because this first card that I lay down is going to end up being the definer of everything as it comes in. It's going to clarify everything that comes in. So this card is under the bottom, but then I have this third one on top. And I specifically made it that way, so I guess we'll figure out why that's the case when it comes to the cards. Then I have the fourth and fifth cards as oppositional. They aren't going to be touching the middle card at all. They're more, as the story breaks down, like they're going to be showing two definitive sides and concepts, essentially. And then we have 6 and 7 that are going to come, and they're going to be underneath the main first card. I put them underneath, I guess, just so that I could see the main card more. But they're going to be underneath in order to kind of bring everything together, and they should add up to having that middle card kind of like sync the farthest card to the other furthest card as well. So then everything should come cohesively together at the end, but it might be kind of random and seemingly kind of random at first. I don't know where this idea is coming from. I don't know why I'm feeling this. I felt like I should do a reading, and I grabbed my Hermetic deck and then felt like I should do this. So I need 7 cards out on the table, and we're gonna go from there. Okay. As I'm shuffling through this, nothing fell out, but this 6 of Pentacles cards is face up, as well as this Death card. I saw the 6 of Pentacles first, so that's going to come up first. I'm putting the Death card underneath it as card number 2. I don't know why those cards are face up. I must have been shuffling weird. I don't see any other face up cards right now, though. So those are our first 2 cards. Let us shuffle, and then I'll... Those appear to be the only ones that are face up. Okay. So I need 5 cards. And I'm just going to take them in order that they fall out. Hope you are doing well. I kind of had a cunty energy earlier. I've been kind of having a cunty energy, but that's also because I'm... Well, it's in part because I'm cunty. Okay, so this one's on top. I've just been feeling a lot of things, and processing all of it, and at least trying to, and it's got me, this is 6, right? Yeah. I guess, oh, it's 2 cards, okay. It's got me feeling some type of way. I just find, I'm like, not necessarily in protective energy, it's more like, I'm in don't give a fuck energy, to be honest, which I think is a good place for me to be. I think I've given too many fucks and wore myself out a bit, and I'm ready to, you know, not be in that energy anymore. Okay, so let me, sorry, put these underneath. This one has to be underneath. Okay. So before I've been really fully paying attention to the cards, definitely before reading any of the cards, this is what we're working with. This is what it looks like. Okay. So the main card that we have in the middle of everything is the 6 of Pentacles, the Lord of Material Success, and we have it on its side. And when I initially did this, it came out on the side as being like this transitional energy. So this is kind of the in-between for everything, right? That's why it's not up or down. It's very balanced in that way, and everything to be balanced through it. It was just, you know, I didn't want it to have a definitive positive or negative. It's supposed to be very neutral. And so with that, okay, the 6 of Pentacles. The Lord of Material Success. I mean, it seems positive to me right off the bat. Right, like being able to claim success, being able to be like, okay, I did it. I did the work, and now I'm seeing the success of it. That doesn't mean that the work is done, by the way. Even if I found myself in all of my successes, it would just be that level in order to move forward with those things. But it's kind of like that, like being given your flowers. So I guess the reading, what energy am I getting out of this? It's kind of the breakdown of that. I've reached this success, and I've been telling myself that, and I have been feeling that, and the universe has been leading me into feeling that way. But there's all these other things that are constantly going on that are making me feel like less than successful. And, you know, so I have been in a bit of a protective energy that way, but I've also been in a particularly, like, kind of stubborn, but more like direct energy of like, I'm not going to let those things get to me. I'm not going to let them take away from the sense of success. I'm going to embrace this, and this is going to be, I'm receiving this as what is meant for me, and I'm using it to continue moving forward in an even better way. When I've considered, when I've visualized what my greatest success would be, what it looks like, even with all the riches, all the abundance, all the perfect relationships, all the anything that I could possibly imagine, it's never looked like an actual end of anything. It's just that those things would help me to be able to do more. I don't plan on quitting until I'm dead. I've been getting a lot of death messages lately, just from like the universe. But today the message about death was like, we are always experiencing these ego deaths and these emotional deaths, and they're not, sometimes it's physical. Yesterday I was having a come apart thinking about one of my dead friends, but like at the same time, he never actually died, and he's been sticking around this whole time fucking my shit up. It's true. Sorry. I'm not trying to be disrespectful of the dead. I have an active relationship with this person in their memory. And that is what I'm talking about. Okay? So take that for whatever it's worth to you. So dumb. As I'm sitting here talking about this, I'm realizing the next card on the table, number 2, is the death card in the upright. Fucking death. And we've got this skeleton here that has a beard, and he's got his scythe, and his scythe is cracking open the skull of this larger skeleton. It's almost like a giant. And there's a scorpion. Oh right, it's me. I'm death. I forgot. I was like, hold on, there's a scorpion. I'm literally a fucking Scorpio. This is my card. This is my card. It literally has the Scorpio symbol on it. I'm so dumb. It's not that I'm dumb. I'm just a bit dense, and I'm also like a bit not centered, obviously, right now. So this is about me coming into that. To be clear, what's it going to look like to recognize this success so that I'm not off here like, la-di-da, it'll look like something different. Like, no, it looks exactly like what I have right now. Embrace that and then use that to move forward. Okay. So I'm noticing that this other skull on the bottom of the card has a snake on his head, but from a distance it looks like a cowboy hat. And there's like these arms and leg bones and knees and femurs that are all like in a pile. There's this like weird Aztec-y bird symbol on the wall in the back. But the scorpion is coming up between this dude's legs. You know, and he's got this giant that he's slaying, and the Scorpio's coming up, and it's almost like while he's taking care of this, the scorpion is like, he's death. He's death. But in this card, it almost like looks like the scorpion like is gonna be his death. But there's also this snake on this other skull that is looking directly at the scorpion. And like, is it going to be the scorpion's death? It's all death. It's all a cycle. It wouldn't be surprising if everybody in this card died. Half of them are already dead. The scorpion is the only thing alive in this card. No, the snake is alive. The snake is alive, but this is so wild. The skeleton with the beard that's killed this giant has this scythe, and I'm noticing right now that the scythe's tail is almost like a snake tail. It's all curly, like slithered at the end. And he's already killed this giant. So it almost looks just like the skull is stuck to his scythe, and he's actually about to kill this snake that's on this other skull's head with the back of his scythe. He's going to crush that snake. But the scorpion is coming up and like getting him right in the pelvis, right in the sacral. It just doesn't seem terribly pleasant. He also has a broken leg. And his arms are all twisted. That's not right. His forearms are twisted in a weird way. And I'm noticing that this extra arm that's down at the bottom, it's like, Actually, it almost looks like it's coming off of the skeleton that this guy's crushing, but it's like the game that you lost. When you see this, it's like, oh shit, I lost the game, right? It's down at the bottom. Okay. Get back to that. Card number 3 is the moon in the reverse. So the death card is called the Child of Great Transformers. And this moon card is Ruler of Flux and Reflux. It's got a scarab in the middle. It's got this full moon. It's got these 2 Anubises with 2 towers that have giant keyholes for doors. But it's in the reverse. And it's on top of the 6 of Pentacles. It's blocking the 6 of Pentacles. Okay, so death being on the bottom. I've been feeling the pit of my stomach drop and feeling nauseous out of nowhere. My ears are ringing. Okay, so the scarab is a protector. What's his phone on? Let me look it up. I'd love to, but this phone doesn't ever want to work with me. Yeah, let's go with this one. Symbol of rebirth, resurrection, transformation, and growth. Isn't that interesting? Because that's also what the death card generally symbolizes. People wore scarab amulets for good luck and protection. The bodies of the dead were adorned with scarabs to ensure that they could travel safely to the afterlife and move on to the next world. It being in the reverse isn't giving me a negative feeling at all. It's giving me a feeling that it's like, because it's in a specific direction, and even with that translation, it's giving me like, we're talking about someone who's already dead, moving on, moving forward into their own 6 of Pentacles. Into their own 6 of Pentacles. You finally did it, bud. Yet that you're already dead. I'm talking to my dead friend right now. Already brought him up. Been thinking about him for the last 2 days. Had come apart with a dude today, and it was within this energy. And so this was the thing. So when my friend died, that was back in 2013. But he like even told me that he was essentially going to haunt me. He told a couple people that he was going to haunt us after his death. Okay, well, he more told me he was going to haunt me. He just told other people that he was going to continue communicating with them past his death. That he was actually doing it on purpose. That as a magician, he was going to go to the next dimension, and that he was essentially going to teach us from there because he didn't feel like he had any more to teach us in this dimension, and that would be the way that we would learn, was with him in the next dimension. And nobody knew what the fuck he was talking about. Everybody thought that he was just like speaking metaphorically. He was 23 years old when he died. Nobody anticipated him dying. Well, his death was very strange and was under very strange circumstances. He was 23. It was February 13th of 2013. So he was 23, and it was 02132013. He also told me that he was in a satanic cult that he had been initiated into when he was 12, and that he had put a mark out on me to be his muse, and that if I didn't become that, if he couldn't transfer my energy or my soul into his control, essentially, that he would have to die in place of me, because that was the plan, was that I would become his thrall and he would be able to take my life and thus take my soul. And the reason he told me this at all was because he said that he didn't realize how powerful I was, and that he wasn't capable of taking my life. And so out of love, he decided to sacrifice himself for me by telling me these things. He was going to die inevitably, is what he told me. But that his love was to be able to tell me these things so that I could know, and that he would return to me in the afterlife in order to help guide me through this life. Very weird. There was a whole lot of other things that went into it that were fucked up. And I didn't know what to make of any of it. And he told me that, 4 days, I think it was 4 or 5 days before he died. He died the day before Valentine's Day, the 2 months after I got married. And he had always told me that he wanted to be with me, and made it seem like the reason that he OD'd, that he was doing that shit, that it was because I was married. He just didn't see anything left after that. But at the same time, he had also told me all of these different things that just have stuck with me. And I felt for a long time, after I got divorced, I separated from my now ex-husband later that year. Or maybe even earlier the next year. I think it was later that year. I don't think we stayed together very long. No, it was the following year, because we were together for at least a year married. But yeah, after I got divorced, I kind of was extremely hard-pressed against commitment. And although I have fallen into various types of commitments and fallen in love with multiple people and, found myself having these different relationships, I never committed to another person. And it's always felt like it's because of Alex. I've had dreams where he's come to me and basically told me, if I can't have you, no one can. And I've felt like he's I don't even believe in these things, but I've felt like he's possessed people in that way. He told me he was going to do these things. I just didn't understand. I didn't believe in magic back then. I didn't understand that it was something that people actually practice and really get into and really believe and make sacrifices for and sell their souls into and continue through all these different things. And I didn't understand these different dimensions and stuff back then, and I didn't really know what to make of any of it, to be honest. And I've been learning over time, and that's what he told me he would do, was that he would guide me into this knowledge. But it's always felt like it was in part just to take my soul, right? And like then he would also like tell me like that it was also to keep me from anybody else, because if he couldn't have me, then nobody else could, right? And so it was like even if I could get very close to somebody else, I ultimately wouldn't be able to bind myself to them because of him. And there was like a long period of time where I kept trying to kill myself, and it literally felt like he was like trying to get me to, so that I could be with him again. And like I remember having those thoughts when I was like extremely depressed and suicidal. Like it felt like he was like luring me in and calling me and being like, but then we could be with each other for eternity, just do it. And I always was hard pressed against it because it just never felt right. It's probably not surprising to anybody listening right now. So about 7 years after his death, I remember I had knee surgery and I was fucking on painkillers, which I don't even barely take Tylenol. I very rarely take any sort of medication. I don't like it. But I was on these potent painkillers. I don't know if it was Oxy something. I don't know what they were. And I only took them for like 2 weeks and they were fucking me up. I did not like them. They made me real bitchy. They made me real irritable. They weren't necessarily making me feel much better. They were honestly making me feel worse because they were making me feel like I needed to be on them, and I did not like that. So I was like kind of fighting it for a while and just being on them, and I like wasn't taking as many as was prescribed. And then I had this weird out-of-body experience. I think it was because of them. I always wondered if like maybe I was like ODing, to be honest, on them. Like maybe I like was having an allergic reaction to them. Because I literally had this weird out-of-body experience and was like hallucinating and shit. And essentially in that, I mean, I remember it, I recall it perfectly. It was very strange. But in that experience, like, I saw this, well, first it was Alex. He was in my room, just kind of walking around my room and talking to me. And, like, I talked to him, his memory a lot, and, like, kept his memory close to me. And I had seen him in dreams multiple times. So, like, it didn't seem that weird to me. So, like, have him walking around my room like that, I didn't really even, like, it was kind of in my head at first. But then it became very real, where, like, he took on this form somehow where, like, it was really him for a second. Like, I could, like, feel that there was a person in the room. You know what I mean? Like, when you feel that energy of, like, somebody taking up space. And maybe it's just, like, in your, like, you can, in the vibrations and stuff, like, if somebody's actually in a room, like, the sound is bouncing off of their physical bodies. So, like, you can sense that. You can hear that even though you don't recognize that you're actually hearing it. Like, there's something about somebody actually being in the room, right? It went from it just seeming like something in my head that appeared to be very real, just a good imagination, right? But to being very real. Like, all of a sudden it was literally him walking around my room. Or, well, it was a person that looked just like him, was just like him, had his energy and everything like that in the middle of the conversation I was having with him. But then as that happened, I, like, focused in on him, and I was like, oh shit, like, you're really here. And I told him, like, I can't believe that you're here. And he kind of laughed, and he was like, well, to be honest, it's not really me. And then he, like, took his physical form off, and revealed that he was actually, and, like, when he took his physical form off, he became this, like, it was, like, in the shape of a person, but it was, like, a void. Like, you could see universes and galaxies. You could see just for everything forever in this shape of a human body. Like, it was, like, weirdly fourth dimensional somehow, right? Like, different. Like, it looked third dimensional, but it also looked like so much deeper than that. And at first it kind of intimidated me, but at the same time it also intrigued me. And he didn't have a face or anything. It was just like a physical form of some sort. And he was like, I haven't actually been Alex this entire time. I'm deeper than that. I'm so much greater than that. I'm this other dimensional being that like you can't comprehend because you're still in your third dimensional mind. And so I had to use this third dimensional body, this person, this concept that you could understand in order to convey myself to you. And that's what, like, I was just using Alex essentially for that. I remember, and like, I was like, I didn't question it. I understood what was being said to me, but it was still quite like profound. So I asked them, well, then what do I call you? And they're like, well, you know, even that concept is so, I recognize now that that's still quite third dimensional thinking. But at the time they were being very understanding of me in my third dimensional state. And they're like, well, you would call me Bobo. That's what they said. And Bobo to me, well, it means a lot of things, and it's meant a lot of things since I've been considering this weird experience. But at first, the way I received that was my brother had taught me about the Bobo Kiki effect. And what that is a psychological test sort of deal, like this little thing that you can do to gauge people's like psychological similarities. And like it's kind of like an onomatopoeia. Essentially, you give people a piece of paper and you tell them, draw Bobo. Obviously, it's just a made-up word. We don't actually know what a Bobo is. Just draw what you think Bobo would look like. What you think, whatever you think when you hear that word. What does that look like to you? People draw all kinds of different things. And then you tell them, okay, and now draw Kiki. And what Kiki looks like, what Kiki's like when you hear that word, what does that look like? What does that mean to you? They're nonsensical words. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just a feeling, right? Based on these words. And 9 times out of 10, you know, I've done this with multiple people, but like 9 times out of 10, Bobo ends up being this like soft, plushy, round, bouncy type thing. Whatever it is that they draw has something like that type of quality to it, where Kiki is like sharp, spiky, jaggedy, a little bit chaotic, has this like totally, you know, different resonance to it that way. It isn't always that for everybody, but generally that's what you'll see. It's just an onomatopoeia. It's just how we've developed to think of those terms. But so when it told me that I would call it Bobo, what that said to me was that I would call it a benevolent being. Bobo being malevolent, Bobo being benevolent, yeah. Kiki being malevolent, right? And so it was basically just telling me, like, you can trust me. And I was like, okay. And I was like, do you want to see? And I was like, not really sure about myself, but I was like, okay. And the second that I felt willing, I already knew what it was talking about, but I also didn't fully understand what it was talking about, right? I knew it was talking about like this other dimensional something, but I didn't fully understand. And I wanted to understand like why this relationship with Alex, why I kept it the way that I had, why it continued to influence me the way that it was. So the second that I felt this willingness, all of a sudden I was standing next to my bed, looking at my body laying in the bed with I had knee surgery, so I'm like laying there with my brace and everything. And I remember being disgusted with my physical form, absolutely grossed out to see myself laying there. Just my body. I reminded myself of my mom somehow, but it like disturbed me. It made me feel very uncomfortable. We're just looking at myself with disgust. And then I like took a second to like process it, because I was like, oh shit, that's me. Like I started, right? Like took a second, And then it was like, okay, hold on to my hand and don't let go. If you let go and we lose the connection, you're going to be stuck where I'm bringing you. Like, you can't let go. You have to hold on so that I can bring you back. Don't let go of me. That's the only rule. Hold on and do not let go until we're back here. And I was like, okay. And the second, he like put out his hand, and the second that I grabbed his hand, we shot off. Just absolutely shot off into these other dimensions, through these other dimensions. Like, you could see all these galaxies and stuff, and then it was like shapes and shit like that. And all of a sudden it opened up into this white space. This white and like pale pink space. Like, that seemed like clouds, but like it was like real fluffy. It was almost like everything was like real blurry. But it was because everything was so like soft. It's just so soft and peaceful. Quiet and peaceful and like happy feeling and like sparkles and shit, but like nothing was definitive. It was just this extremely pleasant, peaceful feeling. And at first I was quite excited about this, and then all of a sudden I started seeing these faces. They weren't faces truly, they were just expressions, and they were quite happy expressions. They were joyful. They were all laughing and smiling, and they had big, I've always loved so much and find it so endearing when people have smiles that make their whole face smile, and when their eyes get all squinty and their cheeks get all big. And it was that feeling, this pleasant feeling at first of being smiled at and feeling welcomed, but then immediately I got embarrassed, and I felt like I was being laughed at. And all of these voices, it was like little kids' voices, laughing, giggling. And I remember being really embarrassed, and they were like, aw, like they're like, aw, and I recognized at that point, it almost felt like I was tripping, right? Because I recognized at that point that, like, they weren't being negative, they were positive. I was being negative because I was receiving it negatively, and that was making me embarrassed. And then I was projecting that, which was making me feel really nervous. And I felt like they were judging me, even though I knew that they weren't, but, like, I felt that way. And so then I was, like, imploding in on myself with my own insecurity. And they were kind of just laughing about it, and they were like, you don't belong here, sweetie. And I remember, like, it almost was like they were my ancestors, right? And I was just like, only I had not prayed to my ancestors at this point. This is actually just prior. I started praying to my ancestors after this experience. But that's what it felt like. And I remember, like, kind of, like, at that second, like, kind of seeing Bobo, and, like, he was almost like a shadow in this realm. Like, he, like, if you've seen a shadow person, you know what I'm talking about. And not like when you see them, it's when the ones that you see out of the corner of your eye, when they almost look like they're like blinking black and blue, when they have this like weird dynamic of like, when you have I don't know what that's called, but like when there's like green, red, blue lights shifting on a thing, kind of, right? And it like gives it that other dimensional aspect. He kind of looked like that. Like, he no longer looked like this. Like, in the third dimension, he looked quite definitively a human form as a void. And you could look into his face and see, like, this galaxy behind him. Only he took this third-dimensional form where he was very physical. He wasn't just two-dimensional in the shape of a person. He was third-dimensional. But beyond him was this, like, full other dimension. This was different, where he was almost more two-dimensional somehow, but also not, because he was like these shifting of lights, kind of. And I remember seeing him kind of almost out of the corner of my eye, and I was holding onto his hand, and for a split second, I almost let go of his hand. I almost let go, because I was nervous, and because I felt embarrassed, and I wanted to go like this. I remember the feeling of wanting to let go of his hand so I could cover my face, and immediately I was stricken with, don't let go. And at that split second, it was almost like that feeling of like, if you were standing on this like super tall precipice and you're just on like the very edge and you're holding on to somebody that's holding on to you, and like realizing that like if you let go, you're gonna go falling all the way down, right? Like you're done for. And at that moment that I had that realization, that like, where your stomach like jumps up into your throat because you get that feeling of falling for a split second, all of a sudden I got very scared because I realized that if I let go, I would die. I was like, oh, I'm out of my body right now. my full ass consciousness, like my whole soul is literally not even in my body right now. And if I let go, I ain't getting back to my body. And I remember being like, yeah, I'm not ready to die yet. And that's what they were saying, but I remember like being terrified of it. And so Bobo kind of laughed, and then he like shot me, he like slingshot me like back into my body. And I remember like waking up and just being, well, the first thing I did was called my ex and told him, get these pills out of here. Get rid of these. I don't care what you fucking do with them, but I don't want anything to do with them. I don't want to see them again. They made me very uncomfortable. That's such a wild experience. But after that was when I started praying to my ancestors. I started getting all of these weird messages to like start taking my spiritual walk and like my spiritual self seriously. And I like became awakened to this whole other side of myself that like I had not been aware of prior at all. And I started getting really weird about it for a minute, like until I like, I'm still weird about it obviously, but like I started like trying to understand these things and stuff because I hadn't really ever looked at them with any sense of seriousness, and that just blew me away. And I remember also during that period of time I started talking to this dude that I ended up becoming infatuated with for years, but I just started talking to him while I was fucking bedridden after my surgery and while I was all hopped up on all these pills and stuff. And I had literally just started talking to him, and then I had this experience. And I remember having this dream at one point in time when I was like half awake, half asleep after this experience. But then like, I was just really weird for like a week. I was like not even on those pills anymore, and I was like weird. It felt like I was just tripping. But I had this like weird like vision of this woman who like this older woman who like came through the dimensions to find me. She had to like fight to be able to find me, just to be able to communicate. She had to like put her energy in such a uncomfortable place for herself just in order to reach me. And she basically told me that she had to find my dad in the other realms because my dad is dead, that she had to find my dad in order to reach me, and that he led her to me, and she wanted me to contact John, this dude that I was talking to let him know that she was sorry and that she loved him. And she was crying, and she was just like, I'm so sorry, and just let him know that I love him. And I remember being like, this is fucking so weird. This is so weird. But at the time, like, I was open to things, and I was like, okay, like, I don't know what's going on, and I don't know why this is happening. I don't know what any of this shit is. But so I told him, and I remember him being freaked out, and he I don't know if it's true or not. He told me that his mom was dead and that she had died when he was 12, and that he had been bitter about her drinking and stuff like that for like ever, and you know, that this like was a really trippy thing for him for me to say anything like that. And I'd never done anything like that before, like communicated to the dead, especially on somebody else's behalf. I'd communicated to the dead because of my dead friends, but like I always took that as just my memory of them, not really like that I was actually talking to dead people. So all of this was really, really trippy. And then I remember like for like the next couple weeks, like I went through this process where like I kept like, I had to like go into my memory of Alex and like understand my love for him and my care for him and why I'd like held on to him this whole time. And at that point I realized like, I'm the one not letting you rest in peace. Like, and it kind of went back and forth because it was like, he was like trying to be like, no, I did that on purpose. Like, I don't want to rest in peace. I literally came to this other dimension because like, I'm not built for the full paradise. Like, I'm not built to get there. I needed to be in this in-between in order to do this work and to continue guiding my friends and continue my magical work. And he was just teaching me about these things because I did not understand what the fuck at all. And he did teach me a lot. And then at one point in time, I remember trying to like release him and trying to send him home and being like, I don't want you stuck to me anymore. I don't want to keep this feeling. But I was doing it in fear because I did fear him. Like, all of this was very scary to me, to be honest. And I feared the fact that like, he had told me about all these things prior to dying, and now they were like coming to fruition, and like it felt very real, and it felt like exactly what he said it was going to be. And I didn't understand it back then because it didn't seem real. But now that he's gone and all of this is happening, it seemed more real than it ever had, and it was just very, very strange. Very hard to process. Hold on, I gotta pee. I'll be right back. Okay, so like, oh, that was really crazy. And even in the midst of all that, like, I tried to release him, but like, I haven't quite been able to. I did. I thought that I did. And I don't know if it's just because my memory is so strong. No, it still feels like I've been being told, actually, in my meditations. It's just coming to me right now. I've been being told for a good minute that he has unfinished business, or at least feels that there is unfinished business with me. And that's why he's continued this. He's continued it through other people. People that I know that practice magic, like, and end up like I said, like, he like possesses them, like they have spoken on his behalf. In the same way that John's mom had come to me, like, weird shit that I don't fully understand. I don't know if I can fully believe it, but I have to because I'm experiencing it. It doesn't, it's weird. It's weird to me still. Like, but what I'm seeing is, like, that's, you know, all of this is, like, speaking on that. Where it's, like, for a long time, he felt very vengeful towards me. And, like, that concept of, like, if I can't have you, no one can. Like, he wanted me to kill myself. Because if I killed myself, then me and him could be together for all eternity, trapped in purgatory. And it was kind of like he's always left me feeling guilty for that, too. Because, like, he put himself there. I didn't do that. He made that choice. I wasn't even aware of what was happening. He was far more aware. But he was doing it on purpose. And it was almost like this last-ditch effort to get with me. Where it was like, if I can't have you in this life, I'm going to have you in the next. And I'm going to trap you there with me. And that's where we're going to stay. And it was just a control tactic. And so I've been fighting him this whole time. And, like, he don't like it. And that's why he possesses other people to come against me. Right? But, like, that's not my destiny. That was never my destiny. Or maybe it was, and I healed to some degree. There was a time and place. I remember it. This is so crazy. There was a time and place in 2011, 2010, 2011, maybe even early 2012, where I was being taught through, like, I was getting really into, like, astrophysics and stuff, and I was learning about this keyhole concept. And that's what's being depicted here in the moon. There with these two towers that have keyholes. There was, like, this very specific... Now, this is before he died, too, right? But the way that time and space works is fucking not as linear as it seems. Because really, he started this. He made that contract when he first met me in 2009. And he thought that he was going to succeed because of the linearness of time, linearity of time. He didn't know I was protected. My dad died when I was born. He's been watching me this entire time. He wasn't going to let that shit fly. Are you kidding me? Think you're stronger than my dad? Fuck you. My dad's the best. There was this keyhole. And the concept was that, like, dude, it's so weird because I've talked about it before too. Like, and nobody, like a few people have known what I'm talking about or like vaguely remember it, but like it's like almost like this weird Mandela effect in my life where like I remember watching Discovery Channel and watching the Science Channel and watching these different videos on YouTube and stuff at the time where they like I was getting into quantum physics and quantum theory and all these astrophysics and like all these different things and the occult and like how all this different stuff worked, because my brother was always very like he didn't, so for a very long time now, he started getting into UFOs back when I was fucking 8 years old. And even then he started learning about like he went directly from like believing in aliens and UFOs to believing that they were demonic, and then he started like learning about the Illuminati and learning about like the Freemasons and like all of these different connections through these different things. And so since I was like no older than 12, he's been convinced that NASA isn't real, or that NASA is like specifically set up in order to basically like create an illusion of space. And he doesn't believe any of that. And he's, believes that we're essentially in the Matrix. And like, I don't know where he stands on these things right now, but like that's where he stood for an extremely long time, for as long as I've known. And we've been estranged for a few years and kind of only talk every now and again, but he taught me those things when I was extremely young. I didn't know what I believed or not. And so when I was like 20, 21, I started learning about quantum theory and quantum mechanics and just astrophysics in general, which like to me all meshed together. And like it was how I started understanding things, because my brother had told me so much and I was like trying to make sense of it at the time. And I remember that back at that time, like I was watching these things where they were talking about how like these transient black holes, like we started like discovering transient black holes. And there was one that kind of just like popped up out of nowhere in our galaxy. And we were studying it, and we had tried to send a few satellites even through it in order to take pictures of what was on the other side, but they got destroyed. And like at one point we did send it through and got pictures of the other side for a split second, and it almost seemed that there could potentially be inhabitable planets on the other side, but we couldn't prove that. And like we were trying to like race against time in order to be able to study these things, because we didn't know how long it was going to be around. It seemed to appear out of nowhere, and we didn't know like how long it might actually last. And I remember like different people talking about, like in these different like videos that I was watching and these different TV shows I was watching and these different things that I was reading online about like the possibility of being able to send us through these black holes and to essentially potentially inhabit these potentially inhabitable planets on the other side of these black holes. And it was all just theory at this time, but I remember that term keyhole. And like what they were saying was that there was like a specific keyhole where there would be a time, and they said that was what the Mayan calendar was referring to. The 2012 thing, it's all started accumulating and cultivating itself into culminating into itself. Where they were saying that there would be like this, it was almost like as if there were these multiple wheels of dimensions on top of themselves, and each of them had a tiny little slot in it. In Skyrim, there's puzzles in order to open doors that pretty much work kind of like this. Or like there's these overlapping layers, and there's like keyholes in each of them. And only once in every fucking blue moon, which is like, however, not actual blue moon, like once in a life, hundreds of lifetimes at least, these things would line up. According to what the Mayan calendar went, the 2,000 years, like that's what it added up until. So it's like every 2,000 years or whatever, something like that. But these keyholes line up, and when they line up, it's pretty much you got one straight shot to make it out and to land on the other side, or you miss it, and you're caught in this cycle again. And it's so weird because as I'm thinking about it, it's like, okay, so at the time it seems almost like I missed it. And that's why he was convinced I missed it too. And that's why this whole cycle of death has been fucking on my back this entire time. But I am death. And like, I've been split on these two dimensions. And I've been talking to people about this. Like, I'm not even in this timeline. I'm in my timeline. Like, when I say this, I'm referring to like the one that I'm being watched in. Like, I'm literally on a different timeline where I'm already like not fucking here. I'm not in this world that's actively dying, that's like full of destruction and death and depression and all of these different dark things. Like, I'm literally from a different dimension. I exist in a different dimension. I'm on another timeline. But it's almost like somehow, and like in part with what Alex had done, like in the same way that he separated his soul to become trapped in purgatory, in the fourth dimension, so that he could have a higher view of this dimension and be able to control what's been going on in my life in this dimension. That attachment, and like this is what I was talking about in my last couple of videos, like that attachment that he had to me, he's been losing power this way. And he didn't understand why, but it's because of my destiny. You weren't going to take that from me. And like, what you did was you also split my spirit. And I made it through the keyhole. And I went to the other side, the actual other side. I didn't stay trapped. But what I did was like what Perseus did with Medusa. And I like had you looking in a different direction to come up and use used my peripherals. You thought I was looking right at you, but I wasn't. I was looking past you, and I moved past you in spirit while you were looking at my body. You were so hyper-fixated on this body that I exist within. You thought it was me. I like did clone myself, you know, in order to... You thought I stood still. You thought I stayed right where you left me. But I was eons away by the time you figured it out. And so you have your way with this body, and you thought that that was giving you some sense of control. And then you were wondering, if I'm really doing this, and if she's really that person, like why am I not transmuting? Why am I not you were trying to rob me of my destiny. You were trying to make it through that keyhole. You were trying to get there without doing the work. You're trying to do the work through me. You're trying to use me and ride me like that fucking horse into a battle that you already knew that you lost, but you thought that you would be able to get there because of my positivity, because of my destiny, because of the work that I have done. You hadn't seen the work because I hadn't done it yet. Time is not linear. You didn't know that yet. You trapped yourself. And you thought you were trapping me, but you trapped yourself in your own fucking shit. In your own trap. You fell into it. By trying to trap me, I wasn't doing anything but trying to love you as best as I knew how to at the time. But that wasn't good enough for you. You needed more. You wanted to control me, and you don't get to. You don't get to. Even these things. I look past these things. I'm alchemizing everything like this. You have no power over me. You never did. Everything I've ever given you was love. And that's yours to keep and to use, but you don't use it. This same entity, this is the same entity I was talking about in another video with like my mom for fucking eternities. The same entity. It isn't Bobo, by the way. It's Kiki. It's chaos. Which is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And what you'll find is your own balance in that. You don't need me for that. In fact, you need me to be removed for that. You thought when you were asking for my death that you were asking to be with me for all eternity, but really you were asking for this like divine division. I want you to be able to rest at peace. I'm sorry that your soul has been so tortured by the things that you were led into, that you were unaware of. And no, it wasn't fair that you try to lead me into those things in my own unawareness and that I was able to escape. It doesn't seem fair, at least. You should have had protection. Somebody should have been there protecting you. And I guess that's part of my work now, right? It's to protect you, and that's what I've been doing. Not protecting you from yourself, not trying to keep you from your own karma, but to shift time itself to save you from those inevitabilities when you were still just an innocent boy. Granted, you were never truly innocent. You wanted to engage in such things. You just didn't know what they meant or what they would do. And I do believe that the only reason that you were given to those things is because you were led into them. You believed the lies. And I do think that you did that in love. I think that you do have real love. I think it's just distorted and fucked up and put into all the wrong things. You've always been my brother, and I've always loved you, and I've never seen you as a monster. Although you've done some monstrous things. But isn't that the beauty of being a human being? That you can straight up be an entire ass fucking beast. But love will still find you, and it can still change you. The curse is broken. You are free. You're not trapped anymore. Not so long as you don't choose to be. But even then, it's such like an old and dying system. It doesn't exist anymore like that. And you'll find those things crumbling away to the point that you won't be able to do anything but forget. I'm working to be able to release those things too, and it is hard. Being able to remember everything with so much vivid clarity has been a protection method for me. And the universe has been slowly and patiently asking me to let those things go so that I can make space for what's new. To let go of you. And I already did. I had to go through that keyhole. And I even remember the dream when I did, and I did it without thinking. I mean, it wasn't hard then. Right now it was a moment, right? It was a moment in time. It was the Big Bang, and right now I'm just going through the motions, the linear experience of that decision. And it's beautiful, and I appreciate the journey. But I do also embrace the destination, I do. Even if you're not here with me. Even if it's not being there with you. I'm okay with releasing. Alex gave the best hugs. He had been really overweight and he lost a lot of weight and he was so soft, and when he would hug him, he would just envelop you in himself. And it felt safe, but it wasn't. It was manipulative. It was begging for pity because he didn't want to do the work. He had done enough. He had done enough already. Why wasn't that good enough? And he put that on me, and I have alchemized that. I have found appreciation in my experience. All of it. All of it. Four, we have the Seven of Wands, the Lord of Valor. When we had this card in another reading, the Lord of Valor served as like the main character. Okay, we're back to main character energy. I've got 5 minutes to finish this reading. In opposition to the main character, we have the Eight of Swords, the Lord of Shortened Force. Bringing these two together, bringing them into this Six of Pentacles, into this balance between the moon and death, between our inherent intuition and the physical sense of loss, the transition and the processing of it. We have the King of Wands in the reverse, the Prince of the Chariot of Fire, Leo energy, strength, the balance of strength, but it's in the reverse. And we have, that's bringing in our Lord of Valor. That's what they require in order to get to this point. And what our Lord of Shortened Force requires is the Chariot in the reverse, the Lord of Triumph and Light. What it takes for our shadow aspect to be able to be properly alchemized is to embrace the Chariot in reverse, which we just had in the reading earlier today. To be humble enough to sit in one's own energy, to be humble enough to accept that you don't have to know everything. You don't have to be in control of anything. You're not. It's not about being in control. It's about letting things be. The Lord of Shortened Force, the Eight of Swords, is very much a direct controlling energy. And it's a bit chaotic in this card. There's the black hole sun, but it's clouded. And there's all of these karmic cycles that are trying to destroy it, that are ultimately just catching themselves up in it. It's about releasing those things. Releasing those things. These are all the cycles. This is the keyhole. Through it, instead of putting your swords into it, instead of clouding this black hole sun, you have to be willing to go into it. To go into that darkness, alone, afraid if need be, but to have the courage to do it, because that's your destiny. That's your destiny. And the Lord of Valor has to release their passions, their arrogance, their pride, their protection. Their sense of enlightenment. They have to be willing to move into this darkness, the uncertainty, the certainty of negativity. the certainty of loss. In order to embrace their success, their material success, their destiny. I'm going to end this reading. I'm going to light a candle and let it burn. I'm going to release everything. And I'm going to start again. Free. Unburdened with guilt, with these senses of loss. Embrace the darkness with the light. Embrace the pain right along with the joy. It's all part of the process. I'm stepping into my dimension. Seems a little bit chaotic right now. It's a little bit uncertain, but I trust it. I know that I made the right choices. I know that I've done the work. I know I don't have to be afraid. And so I embrace that. I don't feel bad about the choices that I'm making. I don't care how other people feel about it. It's not for them. They have their own destinies to fulfill. They have their own paths. Mine is for me. Not for you. For me. And I do embrace it, and I do accept it as mine. I accept me as mine. I don't need to be claimed, and I don't need to claim anyone else. I'm good. I am good. I am good. I'm great. Thank you, Alex, for everything. I release you. See you again.